big hello to all you romance readers out there. If you like the kind of novel that's a will they or won't they, where the main characters are not brave enough to tell each other how they feel, if you like to be transported to picturesque seaside villages, and if, like me, you have friends that are bonkers and loyal in equal measure, then this book is probably for you. So, what was my inspiration behind my first novel? Well, I live in Lancashire in England, so I'm surrounded by beautiful countryside. I love walking my dog in the Lake District, and I love curling up in front of a log burner with a glass of wine. So, where do you find me now? Well, it's evening, it's winter, and I'm doing my usual of big jumpers, candles, cup of tea, and of course, a book in my hand. So this is my first novel, which I'm really proud of. And to give you a flavour of what the book is about, I'd like to read the first chapter to you, starting with the blurb. So this is If Only You Knew, by me, Louise Mercer. So following the untimely passing of her godmother, Laura finds herself the benefactor of a picturesque seaside B&B. She's soon plunged into the life of hospitality, catering for the needs of her eclectic guests with help from her vibrant and fun-loving friend Amy. However, the cosy seaside lifestyle she hopes for is soon dominated by her mischievous pup, an unwelcome ex-boyfriend, seaside storms, and the search for long-lost family. If her new life isn't challenging enough, she also has a battle on her hands against her own emotions as the brooding, handsome village vet upsets her cosy apple cart. So I'll just read the first chapter to you. Chapter 1. Laura breathed a sigh of relief as she turned off the busy dual carriageway, joining the country lanes down to the Yorkshire coast. Her nerves jingled at the thought of what future lay ahead for her. Only 2 months had passed since Lazy Leon, as her mother had called him, suddenly announced he was leaving her, commitment being too much for a 35-year-old. She could hear him now, so many women to get to know and so little time. Not that he was much of a catch, to be honest. Buying residential and commercial properties and renovating them to sell on didn't bring in much money. They'd relied more on her wage than his. Looking back, she wondered what had attracted her to him. Not his recently acquired podgy stomach or increasing ball patch, for sure. She wound down her car window and allowed the warm July breeze to filter through her blonde hair. She hoped this venture would be a success. After being made redundant from the estate agent she had worked in for years, she desperately needed some good luck. If there was an opportunity to chat with Jemima one last time, she wondered what her grandmother would say to her. The conversation would most likely start with, "You're braver and stronger than you think, my darling," and end with, "You've got this." Laura gave herself a mental shake. Of course she could do this. She could run her own B&B. Admittedly, she was still shocked at discovering her inheritance. Not everyone gained a seaside B&B upon the death of their beloved godmother. She still missed Jemima dreadfully. Although they hadn't often had the chance to meet, they'd messaged and Skyped each other frequently. Her eyes prickled at the thought of no more handmade birthday cards or thoughtful gifts sent to celebrate even the smallest of successes. The effects of a stroke were so cruel. She turned at a stone humpback bridge over a wide, peaceful river that shimmered under the warm sun. Laura smiled as she passed a beautiful thatched country pub called the Fat Goose. The succulent hanging baskets covering its red brink frontage and riverside seating area looked so inviting. She planned to visit that establishment regularly. A sharp turn led her into the village of Lansdale. On the steep cobbled streets, white cottages lining the harbour glinted in the sun. The well-stocked gardens brimmed over with a kaleidoscope of pinks, blues and whites, all competing for space. Tiny shops selling traditional buckets and spades were sheltered under blue and white balconies, while the boats in the harbour bobbed around in the faint breeze, their bells tinkling. The beach, as usual, was full this time of year, with couples and young families sitting on picnic mats or deck chairs and some paddling in the sea, while others snoozed with an open book in their lap. Her possessions banged and wobbled around as she manoeuvred the uneven roads, watchful of the many tourists milling around. As she neared the bottom of a steep, narrow street, Her sat-nav informed her only 3 more minutes to destination. She shivered with both excitement and nerves as she started to climb another steep hill to the left of the harbour. Laura pulled up outside a large double-fronted whitewashed cottage with roses and wisteria climbing lazily around the light blue front door that overlooked the sea. The well-maintained little garden at the front, defined by a white picket fence, boasted brightly coloured shrubs and flowers. And in the garden a pale blue B&B sign swayed gently in the summer breeze, proudly stating Harbour Cottage B&B, and underneath on a white chain, no vacancies. She sat for a few moments taking it all in. "This is stunning," she whispered. Of course, she'd seen photographs on the web and in details from the solicitor, but they didn't really do it justice. The butterflies in her stomach fluttered around even more as reality started to hit home. Could she do this? Such a responsibility. She texted her mum quickly to say she'd arrived safely, then took a deep breath to calm herself. As she got out of the car, she stretched out her arms, put back her head and took in a deep breath of the tangy, salted air. From the front of the cottage, she had a full view of the village and harbour to her right, and the blue sea to her left that stretched all the way up to the equally blue sky. She could see why Jemima had stayed and made her business here. Why would anyone want to live anywhere else? Her thoughts were interrupted by Auntie Maria rushing out the front door and down the little garden path, swinging open the white picket gate and enveloping Laura in her arms. Auntie Maria had always loved the simple pleasures in life, and her sense of dress style reflected that. Rarely she'd been seen without a comfy pair of shoes, jeans and a fleecy top. 2 years older than her sister, Laura's mother, appearance-wise they were very similar. Petite, blonde hair and pale blue eyes, but their characters were quite different. While her own mother was strong, quiet and thoughtful, content with retirement, her books and occasional baking, Maria was outgoing and not satisfied unless she was involved in the hub of everything. "I've been pacing at the window for the last hour. I knew you'd be driving, so I didn't want to ring you. Have you had anything to eat yet?" A flood of other questions fired at her as they walked to the car for Laura's luggage. "Just a sandwich and a coffee," Laura replied, "but I must admit I'm a bit peckish again. Must be the relief that I'm finally here." "Cup of tea and dinner first then." Auntie Maria helped Laura unload the bags from her car. Together they carried them through the colourful front garden into a pleasant white and light grey entrance hallway. "We'll do a tour of the B&B in a bit, after you've had something to eat. Come on, let's go straight to your annex so you can rest for a short while." "Annex?" Laura puffed as she struggled with her many bags. "I thought I'd be sleeping in the B&B. "Oh no, my love, you'll not be sleeping here," her aunt replied as she dragged a particular heavy bag down the hallway. "Every room is a huge money-maker, especially at this time of year. The plus of this B&B is the views. Each bedroom has a wonderful view of either the harbour or the sea. They're highly sought after." They struggled down the hallway, straight through to the back of the cottage B&B into a sunny yellow boot room with original stone flooring. The many windows letting brightness from the large garden. Raincoats of different sizes and colours hung off coat hooks, and Wellington boots resided happily underneath. "For the guests," Auntie Maria explained as she wiped away a smear on one of the windows with the arm of her fleece. "Not everyone comes equipped for the great British weather. Either that, or they don't want to pile their car up with what they hope they won't need. Unlike you, of course." She smiled, looking into Laura's bags full of waterproofs, fleece jumpers, walking boots and wellies. Auntie Maria opened the boot room doors, leading them into a large and scent-filled garden overlooking the sea. "Wow, this is amazing." Laura took in the mature flowering shrubs, rose gardens and apple trees. Seagulls cawed above them, their cries mingling with the sound of waves from the sea below. Near the end of the garden, facing the ocean, stood a small barn conversion with a pitched beam roof, accessed by large patio doors and a little wooden decking area. "Your annex," Auntie Maria said as they approached the barn conversion, curtsying as she waved Laura inside. "I didn't expect this." Excited, Laura walked inside. "It's so homely and a real log burner." She stood in the middle of the room, savouring the cosy feel of the barn with its chintz-covered furniture, bookcases and deep pile rugs. Laura could see herself curled up in here on a cold night in front of the fire. At the end of the room was a small but perfectly equipped clean kitchen. Auntie Maria bustled around, plumping up the many cushions. "There's a hut around the back, which is great for storage. You can look at it later if you wish." Laura nodded her thanks and continued to explore the annex. A wooden door led through to a small sunny bedroom with windows looking out over the sea. while the last door led to the back of the building into an equally clean and smart little bathroom. Feeling overcome with emotion, she stood in the middle of the annex, thinking all this now belonged to her. It was so much to take in. She wanted you to have this child, her aunt said quietly. She wrote a will 2 years ago. She never hesitated or changed her mind about you inheriting it. I don't know if she never regretted settling down or having a family of her own. But she lived life to the full, working abroad, teaching languages and all her charity work before she retired and bought this. But it's such a responsibility. The annex is only 5-year-old, her aunt replied. Jemima looked after the B&B too, so I don't expect to suddenly fall apart. This isn't beyond you. Oh, it's hard work, I grant you that, but you'll have help. You're already busy with your own B&B in the next village, Laura said, panicking slightly. I met Amy from the post office. She's willing to continue to work here once you reopen, if you want her, of course. And John next door is a fab hand with a hammer and a plunger. If all else fails, sell it to me and I'll turn it into a brothel. That'll raise your mother's eyebrows. Together they brought most of Laura's luggage into the annex and unpacked the essentials. There's a central heating, Auntie Maria shouted from the bathroom as she placed freshly laundered towels on the radiator. Jemima preferred the log burner though. It warmed the whole annex. Most of the summer you'll be in the B&B, but this is a great retreat during the slower months. Now I've prepared a bit of lunch, so go and sit down and I'll bring it through. Her aunt brought a tray of sandwiches into the room. Take a plate, then tell me everything that's gone on with Leon. No need to pretend with me, I'm neutral, so spill the beans. There's not much to tell, Laura said, sighing. He said he wanted his freedom to relive his youth. He started spending more and more time out with his mates and less time with me. I must admit, I did suspect he was having an affair. He pat while I was at work. It seemed so cold and calculated, no kiss goodbye. Her aunt shook her head. You're worth 1,000 of him, my girl. It sounds like you've had a lucky escape to me. You're young, beautiful, clever, and you deserve much better than the Leons of this world. Coming here will give you a chance to get over him. You wanted a distraction? Well, believe me, there's nothing like good, honest, hard work to provide that. Now go and freshen up, and I'll show you around the B&B. Laura walked through the garden with her aunt, armed with a folder containing details on the B&B, from room terrace to laundry bills. It seems so real now, Laura said as they headed into the dining room. So when do I need to open? Soon, to bring in the finances. I had to put a message on the answering machine explaining that due to bereavement, the B&B was closed. Don't forget to place adverts in shops too, letting them know you're open, not forgetting the websites. It's all in my notes. That's something I am good at. Websites. Now unfamiliar territory, she started to feel more positive. The sunny dining room to the left of the hallway looked out over the sea, while the sitting room with its warm red sofas and open fire had a clear view of the harbour and the village. Exposed brick walls held white shaker cabinets in the homely kitchen, while pots of fresh herbs sat on the windowsill, giving off their woody and citrusy scent. All the bedrooms are named after roses, her aunt explained, as they climbed the spindled oak staircase to the first floor. Laura noticed the nameplates on the 3 doors: Charlotte, Annick and Olivia, she read. Jemima's favourite English roses. I remember their names. Laura unlocked the door to the first room, finding herself in a bright sunlit bedroom with views of the sea. Voile curtains with her tiny sprigs of pink flowers floated in the open sash windows. She looked out over the sparkling ocean. And as tea time approached, trails of families were leaving the sand dunes, while a small yacht could be seen in the distance, its white sail prominent against the blue cloudless sky. She breathed a sigh of serenity at the scene. They headed onto the second floor to the rooms named Emily and Bronte. These are your best sellers. Her aunt unlocked one of the doors. A 4-poster bed covered in white foil dominated the room. Instead of sash windows, this room had full-length patio doors that looked out over the sea. Make sure you mention these on your website. Emily is a replica, but overlooks the harbour. It was so much to take in. When can I open? Laura asked. I knew you'd get the bug once you saw the place. We have an appointment with the solicitor, Mr. Pickwick, tomorrow afternoon. Then you're good to go. Right, I'm going to leave you to it and let you settle in. I'll meet you tomorrow outside the post office on the harbour front. Her aunt opened the front door to leave just as a small curly-haired dog flew out from the kitchen and started to scrabble for attention at her feet. Bronte, shouted a male voice from the kitchen. In followed a man that Laura guessed to be in his early 60s. His twinkling green eyes smiled in greeting. Laura, I presume, he said, shaking her hand. I see you've met Bronte already. He's a handful. I hope you're ready for him. Ready for him, Laura asked. What do you mean? Ah, the man directed his eyes at her aunt. You've not got round to Bronte then. I knew there was something else around, replied, looking sheepish. I'm still waiting, Laura said, bending down to stroke Bronte, while simultaneously stopping him from jumping into her arms. Bronte's a 2-year-old cockapoo, Jemima's much-loved companion. I took him in after she died, temporarily, until you arrived, unless... The man looked embarrassed. Unless you don't want him. Never had a dog before, Laura replied. No idea how to look after one. And is it against health and safety to have one in an establishment like this? Bronte lived in the annex with Jemima. He had the run of the garden, but didn't enter the B&B other than the boot room. I'm John, by the way, from next door. He extended his hand in greeting. You're American, she asked, while still struggling to calm the little dog and his wagging tail. Yes, from San Francisco. So are you able to take Bronte? I'll have a go, Laura smiled at her aunt. Were you planning on springing this little surprise on me tomorrow? You look quite overwhelmed earlier. I thought it best to leave this until tomorrow, let you settle in first and so on. And I spoiled the plot. John looked relieved that Laura had taken on his little charge. He seems to have taken to you quite well. He'll be good company for me, I guess. Is he a good guard dog, she asked artfully. Oh yes, he'll lick any intruder to death, John laughed. I've left some instructions in the kitchen around his feeds and walks. There's also an emergency vet number. Not that I think you'll need it. Don't forget, I'm only next door. I've left my mobile number on the kitchen worktop. I'm an ex-army man, good with DIY. Just shout if you need any help, okay? Laura sighed as she locked the B&B front door behind them. Tiredness had suddenly overcome her, and she looked forward to going back to her little annex, lighting a few scented candles and opening a bottle of wine. She would read the instructions to the B&B tomorrow. So I hope my first chapter has given you a flavour of my book and intrigued you enough. If you would like to know more about the book, then it is available to buy on Amazon. If Only You Knew by me, Louise Mercer. And you can also find the book on my publisher's website. So that's Crimson Cloak Publishing. And myself, you can find me on Facebook. So thank you everybody for listening to this. Take care and stay safe. Bye.